Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube, and this week we have another episode of the K2N Vlog. This week's K2N Vlog episode is going to be a race recap of our local Silver Lake race through the Florida Competition Paddlers Association. I've been the host of this race for about 4 or 5 years. It is about 30 minutes south of where I live. The town that it's nearby is Brooksville, Florida, and we actually race in what's called Croom, Florida. So if you know what Croom, Florida is, it either means that you're from there or you just Googled it. So the race originally, Silver Lake is the name. We used to start on a lake and go into the Withlacoochee River, go down and back. Since I've taken it over, we actually run the course in reverse. So we start on the Withlacoochee and we go up to Silver Lake and back. This year, as I was scouting out the course, because of Hurricane Helene and Milton coming through the central part of Florida with really strong winds, there were a lot of downed trees. And there's actually a point that is inaccessible with racing style canoes and kayaks at about halfway up the river. So the race is called the Silver Lake, but we spend zero time on the Silver Lake, right? So it's actually the treacherous Withlacoochee Super Race. So this year's Silver Lake reminds me of the Wild Hog race, where it was almost unpassable in certain paddlecrafts, but it's just wide enough at some of these down trees that have been cleared by people to get John boats and whatnot through. And I was able to run it on an outrigger canoe. And you'll see in the video race footage that it's like millimeters of the hull and the AMA going through some of these tight sections. I knew one of the advantages I had was I could fly the AMA over obstructions if I needed to. Fortunately, I did not have to engage that skill at the race. Before the race recap, I wanted to go over some of the strategy that goes into not only the race course, but assessing the racers around. Here in Florida, I race a lot, right? There are opportunities to race almost every weekend if you're willing to travel around Florida, and if you do different paddlecrafts, if you're willing to go into the ocean and go into treacherous waters, if you're willing to race in shallow waters, if you're willing to race kayaks and canoes and super long distance and moderately long distances or short distances, whatever it is, right? There's always opportunities to go out and race. And through this racing, I get a lot of experience assessing courses, assessing strategy, but the other thing that I have is assessing other racers. What I mean by this is after you race against somebody a few times, you have an understanding of their skill level, some of their tendencies, some of their strategies that they may implement into a course, and so you can use this information to your advantage. If I know a racer is very good at conserving energy while drafting and can time a push to win over the finish line, you have to be very aware of this so he doesn't pass you in the last 5 seconds of a race. So now this changes how I would race and how I would conserve energy and how I would go through the race based on this other racer around me. Contrast, if there's a racer that is going to jump out and their first 2 miles are going to be proportionally way faster than their average speed, you can now draft this person and conserve your energy and let them pull you until they blow their motor, and then you can easily go by them and never see them again. So again, this all comes from understanding the people specifically that you're racing. And I have an interest in racing, right? So whatever division you're in, or whatever gender you're racing, or whatever skill level you're at, I usually collect data, right? I can make the assessment. I remember what kind of boat they use and what kind of paddle they use and what is their stroke rate and how long can they paddle fast for? Are they really consistent? Are they faster towards the end of a race? Whatever it is, right? It is just information I keep in the back of my mind, partly because it interests me, right? I like watching racers and watching what they do to try and implement their skills and what is their strategy towards success. So I say all this because with a lot of these local races, I've been racing with people for years at this point, right? It's the same craft, it's the same race course, it's just another year. And so you can take a lot of the strategy from year to year. Specifically on the Silver Lake this year, we had a strong racer come down from Pennsylvania. They're not originally from Pennsylvania, but they have been in Pennsylvania racing. I don't actually have a lot of information on this paddler, right? I know they're a very strong OC1 paddler. They have 5K and 10K times that rival my own. So I know they're very strong. I've seen race results knowing that they are able to hang with other racers that I am comparable to, but I don't know their tendencies. How well can they draft? How aggressive are they on the start line? How strong are they in the middle of the race? How do they time their finish? How good are they at reading the water on an unknown course? Are they able to go into shallow water and paddle well? Do they do well with up current, or are they weaker going in either direction of the river? There's so many different ideas that when you are trying to win a race potentially by 1 or 2 seconds answering those specific questions starts to add up to big gains. So knowing that it's an unknown, knowing it's a strong racer, I have to make a game plan for myself to try and give myself the biggest advantage, leaning into my strengths, but not leaning into their potential strengths, right? So I'm trying to run them into what would be perceived as their weaknesses, playing into my strengths, right? It gives me the small advantage potentially. The plan that I formulated is one that I actually advocate against in most situations, right? And one of the reasons I advocate against it is most people try to race like this without having any of the data that I just meticulously laid out. They just go out, paddle as hard as they can, hit the wall, paddle crappy for the next hour, and that's their best performance, right? And that's usually not the best way to race. And so that was my strategy, right? Was I wanted to push the tempo for the first 1 to 2 miles to try and get some of the information that I was looking for. Also a treacherous race course, so getting ahead of everybody gets you out of traffic and potential slowdowns because of other paddlers. So jumping to the front on this specific river is very important, just to have clean water, make the decisions you want to, and not get any hindrance on the race course. And so jumping ahead, right? So this answers a lot of questions. If I jump ahead and by mile 1, this paddler is nose to tail behind me, it answers a lot of my questions. Yes, they can sprint. Yes, they can draft. Yes, they are the same speed as me. And now I have plan B to go through with. But if I'm at mile 1 and I look back and they're super far back, now there are other things to assess. Are they drafting the next boat that is potentially going to catch up to me? And if they are not linked up with that second boat specifically, and they are now in 3rd or 4th place in the back, the reason that I race in this particular way is to force them to have to work in order to catch up to me. Drafting is an equalizer where you can paddle at less energy and keep up with somebody that is working harder, right? So over the long term, they burn less energy, you burn more energy. Now you're more vulnerable to being passed as you approach the finish line. If I'm really far ahead and I haven't completely blown my motor and can transition into a very heavy pace, they now have to paddle faster than me by themselves in order to simply catch up to me again. And in the process of them catching back up, I can always look back and see them and try to hit the burners a little bit more and allocate some more of that energy to going fast to keep them working by themselves. This also makes me vulnerable, especially on this race course, because I pushed really hard on the first 2 miles. As I approached the last 2 miles, man, I was starting to get really tired. And so I'm kind of holding on for dear life at this point. If this racer was behind me and pressing the pace, I would have easily been passed. It's a very dangerous game to play, right? And it's one that I knew that I could play those specific cards because I'm in pretty good shape specifically right now. There are times within my training period where I've trained too much and I don't feel so good, or I've missed a little bit of training in a specific paddling discipline and I don't have that workload behind me to allow for these really big Herculean pushes. So with strategies like that, like, you have to change the game plan based on understanding what cards you can deal. Thank you guys so much for checking out the K2N vlog series. If there are any topics that you would like to see discussed here on the vlog, feel free to leave a comment, send an email anytime. I'm open to discussing anything within the community that you guys are interested in. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all next week for the next episode of the K2N vlog. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Withlacoochee River. So this is a half-hour south of where I live, and the Withlacoochee River actually runs all the way up through the county that I live in. I don't spend a lot of time on the Withlacoochee, but it touches the Rainbow River, so if you've been out there, you likely have been on the Withlacoochee. It's where the Rainbow dumps into. So it's 49 degrees, and you see everybody's pretty bundled up for the most part, but our racer from the Pennsylvania area has been paddling in freezing temperatures, shirtless, and I'm looking at him in disbelief as I'm halfway bundled up with some under gear with my shirts and stuff. A lot of people have some wool caps and such on. So trying to get through here, practicing my evasive maneuvers, going over logs on the course, potentially flying the Yama over the top. I really did think I would have to do this on the race course, but ended up not having to. My wife is timing the race, and she calls the start for us here. And so this is enacting the overall game plan of trying to get ahead of everybody as quick as possible. I know the marathon canoes on the side are quick, so within the first 10 strokes, I'm able to jump a boat length ahead. And but still, like, there's a fire, this person could just file in right behind you, start drafting you. It wasn't for a bit while later when I look back to see that the space is a little bit more wide. The other aspect too that's on my mind with this is I'm in the Ari's canoe, which is a little bit slower in flat water comparatively to the Draco. So they're in a Draco, I own a Draco, but I'm not willing to risk it getting beat up on this race course. So I have the refurbished Aries here. So this is still under a half mile in, and I'm pretty clear of most of the field in the first wave. There is a second wave of kayakers that go 1 minute after us, and you'll see some of them catch up to me as the race course goes on. This gives you an idea of the course. It's a little windy, lots of dark water and roots and trees. It's very shallow on the side, and we're starting up current here. Here's Jason Larkin, who is part of the K2N Online Paddleschool.com as well, paddling through on the kayak. This is about a mile in, if even. I think he passed me in under a mile here, so he came out guns blazing. Jason's a pretty fast racer on the race scene here in Florida. So he ends up passing me. He goes all the way out of sight pretty quickly. This is another viewpoint of the course. So with the course, we go down to what's called Hog Island and come back, and we end up doing 2 laps. So everything that you see here, you're gonna pass 4 times as we go up and down the course here. We don't go all the way back to the start line, we go to a bridge, so the first 3/4 of a mile are not, but all of this section here is something you interact with 4 times. This is where the marathon canoes, comparatively to the outrigger canoes or any boat that has a understern rudder, gives you an advantage. You can take specific lines going over logs or over very shallow water. You can get out of the current going to the sides. And so you get this advantage 4 times going up and down the course. If you gain a second or 2 in a vessel over another one, you can now multiply that going back and forth 4 times to 4 seconds, 8 seconds, 12 seconds. And this can potentially occur on every single turn. So as I'm going through here, I'm actually going through a shortcut. The river is on the right side, and there's this little canal for the residential homes that are here on the left. And this is technically faster. It's very shallow. You can't go full blast through here. There's a little bit less current here, especially going upriver, but you can see that that was an incredibly tight fit for the outrigger canoe. You can see behind me. I don't know how this boat fits there. And this is coming out of that canal back onto the river, and it's very easy to spot coming in the opposite direction because there's a down log or down tree there, and on the right side there's a small opening, again just barely wide enough for this to fit through. So when you're going downriver, you know that once you pass that small opening, the canal is on the right side there. So this is the turnaround point at the top. Jason got lost on the course. He made the wrong turn somewhere, and so I got ahead of him, and I didn't even realize it until making the turnaround here. The C2, John Edwards and Joanne Falloon, are paddling. They're a super team, and I was able to gap them. So we're only 3.5 miles into the race at this point. There's the OC1 that I'm strategizing to stay ahead of. So Jason passes me, and of course, right, we got like Murphy's Law here, where we have a sup paddler still going upriver, and this is the tightest section of the course. There's 2 down trees to fit through, and because Jason slowed down for the sup racer, he comes to a complete stop, turns sideways, gets his rudder stuck on the tree. He's pinned in the tree in front of him, so I'm trying to get him through, and all this time, that C2 is behind me, and it's catching up, and I'm like, Jason, for the love of God, please get through this, because I worked so hard to try and create this lead, and now I've just lost it. So my heart rate super spiked. All of this effort and time has been for nothing. I could have just drafted that boat behind me the whole time and ended up at the same point at around the 4-mile mark. So it's unfortunate, right? And it's where your game plan can disintegrate if the situation arises. So if you have a inexperienced racer get tangled up in front of you, there's not too much you can do about it. So the turnaround point is the bridge. The reason we don't turn at the start line is it's very narrow. And this is me turning on the camera because the front camera that you're seeing here is about to die. So I spend a second to turn on my rear camera. I wanted to do it on the downriver section here to get a little boost. And as we're turning around the bridge here, it's back into the up current, which totally sucks. On this other 2.5 miles, I was able to, continuously pull ahead of the C2, but it's, I'm gonna pay for it a little bit later. So this is going back upriver. My overall stroke rate for this race was pretty high, pushing the tempo going upriver with a higher rate is advantageous. The Aries has a lot of rocker in it. I'm a light racer, so I don't have a big water line. Trying to keep the boat moving constantly because there is not a lot of glide. So I wanted to just try to stay on a very consistent rate even though I'm not getting a lot per stroke, I'm not really stretching out or getting a lot from behind me. It looks kind of frantic where it's just going in and coming out, but it just helps the boat stay very consistent going into the current here. So going upriver again. So again, this is all stuff we've already been through. This is different angles, showing you guys different parts of the river here. You can see the current on the side here. I was pushed all the way down to like 5 miles an hour going up current for a few miles, and then going down river was closer to 8 in very specific points. So it averages out, but it's tough dealing with it. You spend more time going slow, going in these upriver sections. Chad Seipel in the surf ski here, he's in a much slower surf ski designed for impact. So he, even with the minute, he caught me at around mile 9. I'm able to draft, it's awesome, right? So this is going down river again. But this is an excellent example of the shortcuts adding up over time. So he has a kick up rudder. So when he hits something with the rudder, it pops up over the tail, and he's able to go really far to the left there. And I'm not willing to, because this down tree has an exposed log down there, and I don't want to find it with my understern rudder. So I have to go around the top of the tree, and then there's one more shortcut here as well. And this is the first time I take it because I'm like, oh man, I got to get back on his tail. I need somebody to pull me to the finish line. And so the other times coming up and down river, I go wide around that turn as well. And you can see how much further ahead he is by going straight on that turn. So with the marathon canoe, they got the benefit of that 4 times in a row to subtly close the gap going up and down river. This is the opening that Jason got stuck in. I just wanted to show it one time what it looks like to just go through it like, you know, normal speed, and totally effortless, no big deal, just cruising through. It's nice not losing 30 seconds at an intersection. So this is coming down to the end of the race, going down river under the bridge. We don't turn here again. We continue down to the start line. The C2 still kind of breathing down my neck. They are gaining on me at this point, and I'm just praying that the race ends before they have the chance to pass me. And this is the finish line, giving it just a little extra push here at the end, trying to look good. My wife did an excellent job timing. Secretly, she doesn't like racing on this river because it's so treacherous and doesn't want to wreck a boat. So being the timer helps us out and absolves her of any guilt. And here's Don finishing up the race in the OC1. I think I was like 3 minutes ahead all total. I'll have the finish results at the end here. But yeah, that is it. There's a lot of racers out there. I think the SUP paddler that was at the intersection with Jason is the final finisher, and they are 45 minutes back, I believe, or 40, I think, yeah, 40 minutes back behind me. So it gives it time to put the boat away, check the scoring, change clothes, all that stuff. But yeah, it's a very small race. We had probably 30 racers all total between the short course, long course, first wave, and second wave. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of skill that you have to hone on rivers like this, and it can only get easier if you race in environments like this and then go to something that's more open, like a bay or a lake or something with, you know, less issues on the course. Thank you guys for checking out the video. We'll see you all next week for the next video.